The surpriser in the sky, standing in my way. Why, oh why? Always asking why. Needs to know what's going on. Under pressure, proving his existence, losing confidence, filling holes with anything but consciousness about himself. Greed is taking over for spectacular events. Information for the mind is stirring to the body.
Welcome to the Cosmic Reality Radio Show, where our hearts are our masters. Your hosts are Nancy L. Hopkins and Walt Silva. Producing the show is Colleen Kelly. The theme song is called Disturbance and is written and performed by Renate Jet and Jet Music. You are listening to Wolf Spirit Radio at wolfspiritradio.com.
Emotionally undercover for a lover overdressed. The cycle is created long before you start to think that the blink, it's your decision what you do. No clue for the Foo Fighters.
We're live, and this is the Cosmic Reality Show, Wolf Spirit Radio and Aggie Shack Radio. It is February 16th, you know the year. My co-host is Walt Silva. My producer is Colleen Kelly. My name is Nancy Hopkins. And today we have a guest with us, Reverend Linda Brown, which we call Lee Brown. And I think you're going to find it really, really interesting. But before we get to Lee, Walt, how you doing today?
Hello there, Nancy. Hello, Lee.
Hey, Walt.
Welcome, everybody.
Doing all right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm really tapped into this show because I know that we're gonna get recap some good stories from the Reverends. Because one day they breathe out and you get to Nancy, and Nancy goes, "Why the hell are you giving this to me now?" And Lee said, "Well, you gotta change the reality, kid." And okay. So here we are.
Excellent. How are you doing, Colleen?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. Thank you for asking.
Well, you're doing fine now. I know what you've gone through. And ladies and gentlemen, this producer of ours had, I don't know what happened. Honestly, with you, it was a catastrophe. And she's managed to survive through it. But the only way we ever keep going is because of your donations and because of your support by becoming a member and having access to all the archives. You can donate on Full Spirit. You can donate on HaggieShack.com, and so become a member of the arc. Go back way a long time. You'll have some great information. On a weekly basis, you can download any of our shows from the previous week under the archives and the current archives, the last button at the bottom, and just go there. You can download them, or you can just listen to them if you didn't happen to catch the live show. But this is a live show right now, and what to tell you about Lee? I think I spaced out, and I don't think I have all of her credentials. I had them all listed, but she's been my friend for 20 years. She taught me the basics of energy work. I mean, I understood energy from basically a scientific 3D standpoint from the electronic warfare background. But when I met Lee, she explained energy in a metaphysical way that, well, it seemed right and it seemed real and it works. And so she's the foundation for a lot of my understanding regarding any of and all of what we've been into for this last 2 years or so. So I deeply appreciate her. She is not only a ordained minister, but she is certified for hypnotherapy, and she's a Reiki master. Beyond that, it's not just those certificates that one gets, it's the experience. And she's done over 50,000 readings. She has the ability to tap into a number of different modalities of getting inside so that she understands how you can help yourself. But she also has the ability to run energy, healing energy, to clear properties through geopathic clearing. So right now, and Walt knows her, and Colleen just met her, but right now I'd like to introduce you to Reverend Lee Brown.
Well, thank you very much, Nancy Hopkins. That was a lovely intro. And I'm really tickled to be here with y'all. I've listened in a few times and have very much enjoyed the conversations. Though I have to admit, now I'm a metaphysician in practice, so I come up with a lot of good ideas, and then it's up to people like Walt and Nancy to figure it out, and Colleen to get it on the air. So we all do our own piece in making these things happen. Walt, I was so tickled to get to meet you last year, and I know one day we're going to actually make things line up again so we can have that extra long conversation we promised. I told Nancy when I came that, or when she asked me about this, and then earlier tonight I said it's the first time I've joined a conversation without at least having a feel for where we were going, and then I was quickly assured that that's the way the game plays around here.
Oh, well, it's like Walt says, if we don't have anything to say, we can make it up. This is reality sci-fi, you see. We can tell any tall story we want. But I got to tell you, one of the things that I know a lot about Lee, but one of the things that I find fascinating is that she is one of those people that when you call a psychic hotline, or I don't know if they call them hotlines, but the psychic line that you, if you're really lucky, you talk to her. And she was there for the beginning of it. And I just thought it would be fun for you to at least tell us what it was, how it started up, and what you know about the beginnings of it, and a little bit about the, what you can share about how it works.
I'd love to, if that's something folks have an interest in.
Move up a little bit. You want me to take my cat? Come here. We got a cat moving here. Okay, gotcha.
It's always reassuring to have a cat on your lap in circumstances. I was actually just telling this tale a little while ago. Many, many years ago, I was called down to South Florida to help start up the second psychic line that went on the air. And, of course, I was completely against the whole idea of being a phone psychic because there were far too many jokes, and they'd only been around for about a year. And so I started calling myself Susie Phone Psychic. I came down to help hire and to watch over a shift and to help support people in the process. The reason the readers agreed to do this was because people were waking up all over. This was in the late 80s and the early 90s, and people were waking up and hearing voices, seeing things, so becoming intuitive, becoming hypersensitive as empaths, and they didn't really have anywhere to go except in some of the larger towns to find mentors or to find someone who wouldn't think they were crazy. And the psychics kind of agreed that it was important to have some sort of an availability for these folks, because when they'd tell their friends, you would hear, my friends think I'm crazy, or my friends think I need medication, or whatever. So many of the first psychics were actually owned the same people that owned, that owned the chat line, where the guys would call in, gals would entertain them with conversation. And so for all the bad things one can think about that sort of thing, it actually gave several of the psychic lines their legs to get started. Most of them cut loose because there's not near as much money in spiritual growth as there is in talking sex, So the owners of those lines kind of cut the lines loose. They weren't as profitable. So we wound up taking the overall process to everybody's home. There'd be a central computer, and then it routes out to the individual psychics in their homes rather than the psychics coming together in one location and answering calls. And that evolved through the years. It used to be that everything went through the phone company, but as our understanding of technology evolves, so do the psychic lines. You go from having 10 to one of the lines I work for has several hundred readers on it. And the lines don't really have any problem finding good readers because most psychics, empaths, sensitives, I'm not a fan of the word psychic, as my friends all know, because of the built-in thought structure where everybody thinks you've got a crystal ball or a magic book where you can turn to every page and just see them. I tend to believe that we have a very strong hand in creating our reality. Every thought we think, every word we speak goes into the process. So, those of us that tend to be sensitive don't mind staying at home and not dealing with the world in general. And so they don't have a hard time finding us. And I will say that most of the lines that I am aware of that are out there now are, there's a stringent process for interviewing, and you go through several rounds of readings for various people who have pretty extensive knowledge of what is and is not good reading. And should you make the cut, you have the opportunity to stand in line with several hundred readers waiting for that phone to ring. You save the world, or I should say, I believe I save the world 1 minute at a time. And I have often felt that it's a strange little job to have, but as I was saying to Stephanie earlier, there aren't too many venues where you can talk to 50, 60, 70, 80,000 people in the course of 20 years and have at least the opportunity to say you have a hand in creating your reality. So
how many readings have you done now, by now?
I actually have paperwork that I think comes up to about 80,000. 80,000
callers.
Yeah. Those are, because every time you get a call, you make a note. Or I do. I shouldn't say you. I from the beginning, when we first started them, we had what are called callbacks. And a customer could tell the phone company they didn't make the call. And so when they did that, then the phone company would take all their money away from them, and it killed quite a few of the first lines. So I got in the habit of making a note of my caller and the state they were calling me from and their birth dates. And initially, I was not going to work the lines. I was just going to help the other psychics, and I was run a shift. But when you have 12 phones and you only have 10 people on shift, when that 11th phone rings, somebody has to grab that phone. And so in order to actually pick up that phone without knowing who was on the other end, rather than open up to their energy right away, I would just start with their birth date, and I would do numerology. And even though I never ever thought I would understand numerology, it became my go-to tool for pretty much everything. I can add their birth date together, get them saying yes, feel out, who they are and what they're about, and then, take the reading accordingly. So. Now,
numerology, when you first started out, did you have a cheat list in front of you?
I sure did.
Yeah?
I sure did. There's a wonderful book called The Metaphysical Handbook, and I recommend it to this day. In fact, I haul on eBay out there. It's Amazon, I should say, and it's selling a good copy of it. I'd buy it so I can take it to Mrs. But he has an amazing chapter. It's written by David and Lucy Pond, and he has a chapter on numerology, astrology, palmistry, I Ching, chakras, pretty much all of the tools in one book. Wow. So instead of spending $50 on this book, $10 on that book, you spend, $12, $15. And you've got one book that gives you a chance to figure everything out.
And what's the name of it again?
The Metaphysical Handbook.
And by?
David and Lucy Pond. It's a brother and sister. And if you just plug Metaphysical Handbook. Now, don't everybody go buy it because, I need more of them. But it's a great tool, and that's what I used. I just flipped through the book initially because I'd seen somebody do numerology years before after a class I was attending. And I was just amazed how accurate it was. And, David gives a pretty basic understanding. And the psychic line for many of us is not a great paycheck. It's more an act of love, or earlier Stephanie said a psychic social worker. But it's a great education. And so what I teach numerology, I call it numerology and dirty, because as I learned about each of the energies, I would just add it to my understanding, and then I passed that information on. One of the things that folks that think about numerology may find interesting that I've learned working the line.
most of our people are going to know about numerology, but once in a while we have somebody that may not. Can you just give a little basics of what it is, what it is you're using?
Numerology is based on a belief that Earth plane, third dimension is school, and come here lifetime after lifetime to learn times on the previous times. There are 8 basic life lessons that we work with, and we spend many lifetimes on each one. There are varieties to each one. The first lesson being going through a series of lessons to get to the last lesson, which is power. After we get through personal power, after we get through all of the lifetimes, we get tested, multiple lifetimes being tested on all sorts of things. And then the theory says that we come back, or some of us come back. They're called master lifetimes or high master lifetimes. I like to think of them as the glutton for punishment lifetimes. we know a few of those folks who come back to basically learn and then to just help people. It's a master student teacher, master teacher, Christed souls. And there's a whole new energy on this planet now that I don't completely understand yet, which is the 44-8 frequency, which I think is where they're actually bringing the light and power into the very structure of people on the planet. I don't see enough of those to have a complete understanding, but that's been showing up more and more in the readings.
And what you mean the numerology? What you got the numbers? That number is you haven't seen it before,
right? You saw it I saw it very rarely in the beginning, and then as the years have gone by, because you and I met a year after I started this with this, and so in all of these years, I have slowly seen it becoming more and more into the structure. Now, I also have seen that we have a lot of folks that I call them alien puppies. These are people that have done a lot of their evolution elsewhere, and they've come here. I believe that they've been brought here to help us with this transition we're going through on the planet. And the other thing I've seen a lot of in the last few years are what I think of as change children. These are people who come down to one energy but actually have high master souls. At the risk of kind of running over this whole program, is that we're going through a frequency on this planet, through a leap in frequency. And anything, specific frequency, everything's got. There is a frequency at which people are coming onto the planet, but in order to leap the frequency, we're having older souls come in under younger, quote-unquote, younger frequencies. Sort of like a baseball or a softball team where the kids all come in. You only have 11 uniforms. Doesn't matter what size the kid is. You pick the best kids, cram them into whatever uniform you can get them in, and you start the game. So I think we have a lot of souls that come in under what would be considered a young frequency, who are actually very old souls, and in the course of the game, they split their uniforms, run around naked, and then find new uniforms. So I do see a lot of that happening. Now,
Walt, would you read this as being the same situation that Andrew was talking about with trying to hijack souls so that now they come in later? Do you think it's the same?
Smuggling mechanism, because the system is looking out for the way he explains it. He explained this as part. He was doing a reading who had a catch, and then finally she was able to successfully carry her baby girl. And Andrew did the Akashic record reading for her, saying that maybe that was miscarried. It was not an accident. The system had sabotage, so she couldn't be born because she's a very special soul. So he said the reason the second birth was successful is because in order to bypass the system of control, what they did is they just enlisted a regular, run-of-the-mill soul to hold like a placeholder in the body of the baby. So when the baby is born and takes the first breath, they do a switcheroo. The soul that needs to come in comes in, and the other one, the placeholder, leaves. And the system can't do anything about it. The baby is breathing on its own, independent of the mother. And he says this is happening more and more because they need to come in and do the work, and they need bypass the controls in place.
Does that sound like that would be what you're saying?
It sounds like another solution to the same issue, yeah. I think, it doesn't surprise me or wouldn't surprise me if there aren't multiple ways that they're trying to get high frequencies on this planet.
Because I know I stepped in at age 3. He knows it was 5. We all of a sudden, when he told us that, three of us were on the air. And he said that, and I said, I don't want to sound egotistical, but I know that what you just explained happened to me at 3. It makes so much sense and explains so much other things.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Byron Gentry talked about walk-ins back in the late 80s also, because the phenomenon was becoming so much more apparent. And it was a very similar situation where these folks had sort of contracted with these other souls to step in at a certain point.
Yeah.
And, there are a lot of, there's a belief that a lot of souls, they say, used to be a strong need for the younger souls to be able to come in, Down syndrome, autism, and things like that, so that they would only go to a certain point in their evolution here in Earth plane, third dimension. But as we have evolved and as we have greater needs, and as the planet is coming to this point, we no longer are sort of a kindergarten anymore. We are now advanced souls, and so even when you find folks are doing those lifetimes, they're usually very, very advanced souls serving the purpose of the planet.
Now, I want to go back to the, was it 438? What was the ones that you're starting to see?
The 44-8s.
44-8s. What kind of a person, how would you read a 44-8?
If I simply read it based on what I have come to understand about numerology, 4s are usually very grounded, kind of stubborn, hardworking, very security conscious. Turtle energy. Because it's a turtle, if you ever watch them, they can move fast, but they only move a foot at a time. 3 of them stay still, 1 foot goes forward.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
My turtle showed me that, and I thought, what enlightenment was that? And so, but they also showed me how they could disappear very quickly, too, when I turned around. So I see 4s as turtle people. They're kind of the salt of the earth. They're the ones, if you have a job that you want to get done, you want a 4. They're going to get in there and they're going to tote that barge and lift that bale. 8s that's the power lifetime. That's the last lessening that we do on this planet. And it's about personal power. It's about learning to bring everything that you've got to the table and make something out of it, to create successes on your own terms. And it is, one of the later lifetimes. Obviously, 6, 7, 8 is returning to spirit. 1 through 4 is kind of like learning to be in third dimension. So when you get to an 8, they've kind of taken in all of these lessons and they're going to do something with it. In the master numbers, when you get double-digit numbers, 11, 22, 33, 11 is a master student teacher. 22 is a master teacher. 33 is called a Christed soul. A lot of people think that guy Jesus, his last name was Christ. But when they put Christ after his name, it was just an honoring of his soul attainment, which is basically you give till you screw yourself over. Those are the people that are forever putting it out, getting it chopped off. But a 44-8, it's like these are the people that are really ground the energy and lift it to a higher level. The challenge, the challenge society's beliefs around success is away from the idea of, being a monetary type or being a house. It's these folks being step outside society to a higher consciousness around the planet and the process.
Not based on money.
Well, money doesn't. As long as
we're
serving the program.
In the old reality,
Right, it can't be the end all and be all.
Seashells seem the most, that would be the best, because who doesn't like seashells?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't call it a dirty seashell. You might say dirty money, but you'd never say dirty seashell, because even the sand of the sea is pure.
There's that.
So, Okay, so I know that you probably have something in. What we try to do here is we try to just give you the opportunity to tell whatever it is you think you want to talk about. So it's really you tell me what I really want to know about the psychic lines, because I thought about it, knew you, but I never thought when I was with you to ask you that question, and I do find it very telling that it came out that particular type of business. It was sex calls that actually started
the framework.
Yeah.
Framework in place.
Yeah.
They already
Can
have
I say something, Nancy?
Sure.
When you said about the sex calls, and you said that the guy didn't find the psychic lines as preferable as the sex calls, I think the guy just totally dropped the ball. Because in her last show with Eric Perry, Nancy introduced masturbating ghosts. So that, first time ever on the air, Captain Hopkins, is revealing this to the public. And the moral of the story, to me at least, is that here, sex is so powerful you can't even kill it with death. So that guy totally dropped the ball by, closing up the psychic lines.
I remember him saying that on call, the woman that called him while he was in Walmart. That was funny. That was a great that talk the other.
Lee, I have numerology for you. And my question is, there's more than one numerology system. How do you reconcile the differences between them? Because, for example, the astrology author Linda Goodman, you must be very familiar with her name. She said in her books that for numerology purposes, she always used the Chaldean system. Like, for example, I started using the name Walt Silva because under the Chaldean system, when you do the numerology calculation, it gives you a very positive number. It gives you 10. But yet, if you use another numerology system, it gives you a totally different number. So how do you reconcile the differences between systems? So I think that there is no absolute when it comes to numerology.
Well, that's why I have you and Nancy around. See, I just present this, and you got to figure it out later.
Good. Thank you, by the way. Is this sort of it's your numerology? It's what you've learned because you dealt with the people.
That's what I was going to say.
Not theory.
That's why I call it down and dirty, Walt. I've tried to read books. There are some amazing books out there. There are people who swear by numerology and the divine triangle and all these other books that are really intense. And there, I tried to watch a whole show on the Kabbalah and numerology and Judaica, and I was lost. I was so totally lost. I'm a real big fan of the KISS method. People say, how does it work? I don't have a clue. I just know that reading after reading after reading, people said, yes, 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 yes. And over time, I just start seeing this interaction, and it starts making, pretty clear what numbers work well together, what numbers don't, which ones are drawn to each other, why they're drawn to each other. It's a really helpful tool. What I really love about numerology is that we have a tendency to project on people who we want them to be and then get real pissed off when they aren't that.
Isn't that terrible? Why can't they be the way we want them to be?
It's so annoying. With numerology, what I've found with, like I said, the down and dirty that I use is that I don't expect a 5 to be a 7 or a 7 to be a 1 or a 1 to be a 9 or, and so it makes it easier on them and on me. I was tickled. I had what I called a prodigal child, a young woman that I helped mentor through a lot of her life, and she was a 5, and some days she'd come in just dragging butt after just beating her head against the world, and she'd say, aren't I a 6 yet? And so God love her. She should have gotten her little 6 star, but she was still a 5, and so I don't have a way to reconcile all of it. I can say that I think people make it way too hard. I think that there is a basic sort of energy to each number, and you can almost look at the numbers themselves and understand them. You know, I start out my class by singing that old song, 1 is the loneliest number, because 1 is about the self, you know. And the first thing we have to do when we come into Earth Plane Third Dimension is figure out who we are, you know, and where's our place in all this. And then the second thing we do is we have to figure out you. So we do 2. And if you look at a 2, it looks like it's reaching out to embrace something and standing on its own pattern or its own platform. So, you know, you look at a 3, and I always say you put 3 people together, you got a party, you know. So I feel like the numbers kind of give themselves away.
We'll go through them. That's interesting. What's 4?
4 is the grounded, stubborn, hardworking. If you look at a 4, the way they drew it in school, it looks like a box with a stalk on it. So the box is holding all the responsibilities, if you will, or the work carrying the box, and then the stick is just as solid as it can be. So you're 4. And your 5, it's got that nice rounded, let's get into everything bottom part. It shoots up to the sky, and then it sort of plateaus out. You know, 5, say, I call them the bumbles. They crash and burn a lot, but the people around them end up bruised. You know, they're great people to have. They're a lot of fun. They got lots of energies. They're kind of teenagers of the universe, you know. 6, if you the number 6, it starts high, it comes around in circles. And 6s are the ones that look after everybody. They're the ones that, you know, are the family, the responsibility, the community consciousness. They're the ones that join the PTA to be not necessarily worker bees, but they want to be recognized, but they'll do the work too.
When you said that, I thought of a dog going around a herd, like a herding dog.
Mm-hmm.
When you said that about the 6?
Yep. That would be very apropos, because they are the ones that will bring the community together. Mm-hmm. They'll be on the community organizations. And they have very strong ideals. The right and wrong becomes critical at this point. And then 7s, if you look at a 7, it's like an arrow. 7s are here to help, here to help teach. They're reaching back to spirit, and they do spend way too much time in their head. You know, a hard time sometimes being grounded. You a little point that's barely on the earth. 8s, I always encourage folks to draw the 8 like infinity symbol, not like 2 zeros stuck together, because 8 it's encompassing everything and making something out of it. So you that takes in 9 the final exams. Those are the people who are being taken. So,
somebody wants to know how do you think about the numbers? Where do you get the number for somebody? What do you put into it?
You add the birthday together. You write your birthday down on a piece of paper in front of you in single digits. Like I always tell on myself. So, 1957. So 7, 5, 1, 9, 5, 7, and put a little plus mark between each letter. So 7 plus 5 is 12. And then you add in 1, 19, put that 19 if you were born in 19 something. So 12 plus 1 is 13, plus 9 is 22, plus 5 is 27, plus 7. So I would be converting 4, and you have to add that together because you want to get to a single digit. So 3 plus 4 is 7. So I would be officially known as a 347. 7 being like my sun sign would be in astrology. That's how you get your life energy number. Your birthday, they're all single digits, and where people usually mess up is they forget that 19. Or like the kids now, they forget the 20. Mm-hmm.
Hey, Walt, you want yourself read? Numerologically?
Well,
did he say
green is more my color, but I'll take red.
Say what?
Green is more my color, but I'll take red.
And you know, you tickling me, Walt, because, you know, a lot of times, even with rocks, they say that you have a good story, it makes people more interested.
Yeah.
One of the things I do is for me, numbers and colors are very similar in my head. And so I will say to my callers, you know, I see a lot of yellow or orange around you if it's a 3 or a 5, because those are the colors that I equate. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite things to say to a 5 is, you're like a hot sunrise over Miami, because of the hot yellow and orange in the sunrise. So, like I say, for a lot of times in readings, I will mention colors instead of numbers, because it's easy people to.
Well, now, do you get the colors out of the numbers? Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Sometimes vice versa, too.
Sometimes you can see, empathically feel the color?
Sometimes I get a feel for the color, yeah, because I'm clairsentient.
So what data do you need from me for a reading?
I need your birthday, son.
Oh, okay. Let me type it in the chat. There we go.
$59.
Mm-hmm.
So, 7, 8, 9, 18, 18, 27, 32, 32 and 9, 41. Do my math right? I didn't bring my calculator out. 41. So that says 41.5. Your math say.
Can
Did you type it? Because your voice is breaking up. I couldn't make out what you said exactly.
My math says 415. What does your math say?
You said that's like the number 415? To reach that number in numerology.
Wait a minute, 1 second here.
I'm believing we got it right. And for the person who asked, I'm going to step ahead a little bit. For the person who asked how to get the number I'm talking about, there's a second number that's important to have. The number current year. And to do that, you're going to add your birthday and your birth month in the current year. So in Walt's 7 plus 2 plus 8 plus 2 plus 0 plus 1 plus X. So 7, 8, 9, 17, 18, 19, 20, 26, 2 6s. So Walt, if I was reading for you, I would say that you're a 415. Actually, I wouldn't say that out loud. I'd say you got a lot of hot yellow and oranges, and you got a boatload of green and brown. But what that would tell me is that you can be very stubborn, and you can be very tenacious, and that you will stick with things till you get them figured out and done. And your 5 indicates that you have a mind that is curious about everything, and that you tend to go in a lot of directions at once, and the big challenge for you is following through and finishing things.
Mm-hmm.
Am I lying?
Huh? No.
Am I lying?
No.
The things that also shows up is that 1. And the 1 is an energy that, I'm my tails out of school, it's an energy I believe that you're working. Because when I look at your numbers, that's the number 7.
Where does the 1 come from?
1 is the sense of self. 1 is coming to know who you are and what you are capable of. The 415, the 4-1 makes up your 5. So the 4 is the stubborn, grounded, hard-working, going to get it done no matter what side. The 1 is the sense of self and bringing yourself to the table. And the 5 is the creative, curious, interested in everything, hate to be bored side of you.
Mm-hmm.
Now your 2, 6, 8 indicates that this is a partnering layer, that this is a layer where other people have had an impact in your life, and you have been more interacting than normal on a real level.
Could you repeat that? Your voice broke up.
I said that the in your current energy indicates the layer that you're in. This layer of your life, and I can explain layers if needed, but this layer in your life is about relationships of all kinds. And it means that a lot of what's happened in this layer has been interacting more with people on a more real level. It's 2 is about relationships and partnerings. This is about higher consciousness again. It's about right and wrong. It's about trying to move things into a better direction. And the 8 is the year that you're in, and the 8 indicates that this is a harvesting phase in your life. This is the time where the things have been working forward and 2 are coming together. This is where you're sort of wrapping up a lot of things you've been working on for a long time and making something out of it.
I like that, Walt. Seeing that you work with us. Do your 8 thing, hon.
Yeah, you definitely want an 8 person around.
Yeah, Lee, if I see so much in the numbers, I bet she can also see that the worst scenario that fills me with dread and panic is the idea of going out there and getting a job somewhere.
Yeah, I share your dread. I work very hard at not working at a real job.
Oh my God, that is the worst.
And that's because of that 5. I mean, if you were a 404, a job, the only thing you'd want. 4s crave stability, but your 5 causes you to want reaching out and stretching quickly. You know, you don't want your balls, you want boxes.
Your numerology actually coincides with a lot of what's said in human design. Because in human design, my profile is 3-5, and what happens is the 3rd line personality, they crave that constant stimulation. In fact, that's why I did the computer work for, even though it was terrible pay, bad company, but I did it for 11 years because every day I would see somebody different. I didn't have to go to an office and sit and spend 8 hours looking at the same people's face. Every day I would go out in the car and visit different clients. And that's what Raul Ruku explains about 3rd line people. He says, for a 3rd line person going to school every day, sitting in the same class, looking at the same teacher, that's hell on earth. They need that constant stimulation of different things every day. So that coincides.
That's usually what I tell 3s, too, that come to me for psychic input for their own lives that are trying to develop their gifts. I encourage them not in one school of thought. I tell them to find any teachers that they're drawn to, read any books they're interested in, because what will serve them will stick. I also encourage them not to get too excited over any one of them, because there is a tendency to go running madly down a trail and then all of a sudden realize there was a better trail further up. So yeah, 3s and 5s are the explorers and the teenage energies in the universe, according to numerology.
Yeah. Well, those people that want to grab onto something, I've noticed that pattern is because a lot of people are looking for a sense of identity, so they just want to belong to something, even though it might not be exactly right for them, and they don't realize that it's the path of giving your power away. You know, this is my teacher, this is the one I'm following. Well, all you're doing is just giving your power away. This teaching should not be something that you're to. It should just be a stepping stone. It's giving you something that you go ahead and use until you move to the next. The goal of your existence, and miss that point altogether.
I think I have to say that I appreciate what Nancy said earlier too. I think as we gather things, she has been a teacher to hundreds, if not thousands, and not all of them two-leggeds, and been taught by the same. And I feel honored when it's remembered the parts that I've played in the process. And I try to do the same with the folks in my life. She doesn't know how many times her name gets mentioned, but we have to, if we're really going to grow and step into who we are, we take one from column A, one from column B, and maybe a little from D and E to get there. The one thing I wanted to explain real quickly, if I may, about with the numerology, in case we step away from that. I mentioned about layers. What I feel like I'm being privileged to do when I do readings is to look at the framework that the soul put together through numerology, sort of like what the soul wants to accomplish, and the framework that was put together to make that happen, either in the personality or in the gifts and the challenges we take on. And, people would say, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And I always reply, it's just a thing. It's, kind of what we do with it that makes it good or bad. But in spirit, we know that you cannot serve two masters. So I found it interesting when I realized through the numerology that our lives are sort of set up either or. When people call, they'll say, I have two questions. And I know it's honey and money, money and honey. We kid among ourselves, we call them paid and laid readings, because those are the two areas that people have insecurities and want security and stability in their lives. They want to be loved and they want to feel financially safe. And so, but when we're in spirit, we know that you can't focus on those two big parameters at the same time. So through the numbers, we can figure out which layers are financial layers and self layers and which layers are partnering layers. All layers actually end up being self layers, but in partnering layers, we're able to focus more on other people, and we have the emotional freedom to get more involved emotionally. In a financial layer, the work that you need to do, whether it's spiritual or emotional or financial, has to take precedence. And what happens, a lot of folks will call me in a financial layer and, well, when am I going to meet, the forever person? It's always soulmate, and we're going to talk about that in a second because that is my agenda, the whole soulmate crap. So when you're in a financial layer, you have to prioritize yourself. If you want a relationship, that's great, but it has to be stay in the moment, date for fun, not fun, go home, Don't project on every person you see that it's going to be your forever person, because it's going to drain your energy away from what you're supposed to be focusing on. If you keep your focus in the area it's supposed to be, the other areas will take care of themselves. But if you're so busy dividing your energy, you really don't accomplish anything in either realm. So when I talked about a layer, I said this is a partnering layer for you. This is a time where your successes will get stronger when you're working with others. Not necessarily 100 people, but in relationship with others. Much like what you've got going on.
And I'm a projector. I have to wait for the invitation. I have to get invited into a process. I can't go out there and engage people. So that's the way Randy Richmond explains it for projectors. If you are doing what you love, you get seen, and you get seen, you get invited. And once you get invited, then you can
but you want us to invite you over and over again.
We're projectors. We're supposed to get invited.
I know, but we were talking about it earlier because, Stephanie says, well, we're projectors, and, yes, we keep getting asked more and more, because we're all projectors, but we keep getting asked more and more, what are you doing? What are you doing? Whereas before, if any one of us, had attempted to explain to somebody, well, I can, they don't listen to you and they think that,
Yep.
But once they start to, we were talking about, Steffi's half my age, and you were telling about the concept of being a projector, that you go through a third of your life and you're failing all the time. A lot of attempts.
No, you and Stephanie, that's not for all the projectors. What happens is that Stephanie is a 4/6. So she has 4 on her personality and 6 on her design. And you are a 6/2, meaning that you have 6 on the personality and 2 on the design. Whenever you have a 6, because of the way the trigram is set up, that 6 follows, it's affected by the 30-year cycle of Saturn, the Saturn return.
Oh, so she's not, even though she's a projector, she's not being affected by it.
Well, has she passed her 30th year?
Yes.
Then she's no longer affected by the trial and error process.
No, she's not, but she's also not on the roof.
Well, yes. Once she passed her 30th year, she's literally enjoying the ride. You're on the roof, watching the show and just enjoying the ride. You don't have to be an example for everybody. Just enjoy the ride, it's a great place to be because everything just flows. That's why 6-line people like you, like her, once you reach your 60th year, you have to come down the roof, and that's kind of annoying because you had such a good time up on the roof, just watching the world go by and, enjoying the show. But now you have to come down and be an example for everybody else.
Well, see, that was what we were talking about, is that I actually went through that. I'm late 60s, so I went through all this. I can absolutely attest. Yes, that's absolutely what happened. But her role right now is one of being an example, of going out, of touching people, of doing, and it's not like she's up on the roof enjoying herself. I don't think that's what it's about. So it's almost like she's missed that stage.
What happens is that on her case, it's on the design level, where in your case, it was personality. So whatever is on your personality is something you're experiencing firsthand and you're consciously aware of. In her case, it's on the unconscious side. So she's not directly aware of it. On the personality side, she's a 4. On the 4 are people. Those are people that, a 4-6, for example. I was explaining this to my mom earlier because she's a 4-6. The 4-6 is a person who can't go around knocking door to door to sell something. It's impossible. They can only sell or promote anything, a book, knowledge, an idea, to people that they already know. And that's how they get referred to new people through the people that they know. That's the way the 4-6 works.
And that's exactly how it's working with her.
Yep. So
you have looked at numerology, and you see the correlation between that and the design, human design.
The numbers that are quoting are part of the human design system. It's the profile, because
I know that. But what I'm saying to you is the numerology, a 4 in numerology that you know, and a 4 in the human design, do they mean the same thing?
I'm not an expert in numerology, so I cannot correlate.
Okay.
You.
All right.
That's where our conversation ended, because I had to get to the Tesla Energy Light appointment. I think we had promised we were going to call back and we would get into it further, and then it just didn't happen. Yet.
Do you want to do some readings of the chat people, or
we're at the top of the hour?
Well, not yet.
Oh no,
I'm watching.
That's right. The clock's wrong. Sorry. I've been living in the Wilder Yard. There's no time here. Any timepiece you see has got to be added, subtracted, or just not believed.
Well, two of the wall clocks don't work. There's only one wall clock that works, and it's now gotten itself kind of a couple of minutes off.
How about if we do this? If there are people that want me to do their numbers while we're taking the little break, they can put their numbers into the chat thing, and I can, look at the numbers and kind of throw some things out.
Sure.
As we're going.
Sounds good.
And if there's no interest, then we'll just think of other things to talk about.
Sounds good.
Most people are very brave. I'm sure many people will put their information. Right, people? Don't make me look bad.
Okay, now just so you guys know, Lee is from Atlanta, Georgia, and her website is?
EnergyWeaver.com.
That's EnergyWeaver.com.
And I do the bulk of my readings on the phone. I do private readings in person also, but it's a long drive from many places, so I do the bulk of my readings on the phone, and I have done some Skype readings, Time and space doesn't make a lot of difference with this kind of work, as the lines have proven, because it's just a construct we agreed to believe in Earth plane third dimension. So,
now, if you were to make a determination, do you use more of the numerology, or do you use more of your telepathic, empathic capabilities, or is it a 50-50, or it depends?
You know, I do so many readings every day that it's become such a blend, it's almost hard to know sometimes. There have been times when I'll do all the numbers and over again, and I'll get the wrong number over and over again. And a part of me will know it's the wrong number, but I read on what I got. Because sometimes a person's guide will step in, sometimes a person's a walk-in like you're talking about, or sometimes a person's a change child. And that's when I have to really just trust the intuitive side of my gift, if you will. And so yes, it's firmly based in the numbers, but it's not only the numbers. And I say what I've learned over the years has put a lot in. As someone was looking at David's book and said, well, you didn't say this about that number. I said, because I don't really think that's completely accurate anymore based on down and dirty. Mm-hmm. You know, as I said, it's not great pay, but it's a great education. Yeah. Most psychics will burn out. Most readers will burn out on the lines. You know, in the beginning, we used to say 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years. The way I stayed with it, because it is a great way to kind of get a pulse on what's going on with people and their evolution. And the calls have changed since the beginning. You know, we still have some much the same, but we get, it's almost like it's divided, like a forked tongue. We get some people that are really awake and looking for information, and we get people who are completely not awake. And, say in the beginning, first off, most people just figured it was a scam or a sham. And now most of them that are calling, something's going on. At least they hope there is. So they say that it's changed. But my experience is weighed most heavily in, you know, a lot of times things will come out of my mouth and I'll kind of turn around and wonder where it came from. I just trust that it's right. It's what needs to be said to that person in that moment.
Yeah.
So, and those are the moments I live for when I make, you know, just do a lot of really challenging calls to get a person that I've made the difference in, you know, their tomorrow. One of the things in life that's kind of annoying, my dad was a Baltimore City cop, and he doesn't believe in any of this stuff. And Mother made me agree we'd never tell him what I do for a living or for my life. And so he thinks I work for a suicide hotline. And there was a stretch of time, and that's where his belief came from. He overheard me talking to Mother on the phone, Mother on his end. And I had in the course of a week, I had 3 or 4 people who were truly suicidal. And I was able to really help turn it around for 3 out of the 4. And they had called me back since. In the very beginning, we always had the suicide hotlines in case we did have someone who was suicidal, so we could encourage them to make that call. Over the years, like I said, Dad still thinks that I work for the suicide hotline.
Okay, we're just past the top of the hour. Okay, we do have some numbers up here, quite a bit of them actually. I don't know if you're going to read them all. See them? Put on a tune for us, please, Colleen. Colleen?
I'm here.
Okay.
And I know Walt sent it. I'm searching my thingy for it. What was the name of that, Walt? Walt?
Name of what? The song?
Yeah.
Oh, Nothing is Something Worth Doing by Spangle.
Unless you ever double decker.
Spangle, yes. Where is it at? I know I put it in here. Oh, Lord.
Want me to send it again?
No, I can,
It's right there in your Skype chat. Just grab it again.
I will. Also, just talk a minute and
talk amongst yourself. I'll give you a topic.
What has she got against music tonight?
I have got
Busy
girl.
Yeah. Maybe we could just, learn how to play the harmonica.
You're funny.
Remember, she's a 3-5, like me.
Who? Oh, yeah, that.
You're a 3-5 like me, so you have to find out what doesn't work. That's our job.
Yeah, well, recently nothing works. Okay, here we go. Nothing is something worth doing. By
We'll be
Spangle.
back. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And we are back.
If I could get my mic unmuted. Yes, we are back, and this is Wolf Spirit Radio and HaggieShack.com radio. What we're doing here is Haggie Shack actually does the production, and then it is streamed into Wolf Spirit, so you understand the relationship. We've got Lee Brown with us, Reverend Lee Brown, and we had a lot of people respond with the numbers, so I'm not going to say anything more. I'm going to let her go with the first on the list. And to be honest with you, the chat lit up, but also Stephanie's phone. So there's a couple of people on here that called Steffi who are really important to us that we just want to say thank you because they've both been on our show. So, Lucia.
Yeah, Lucia, I've got you up here first. There are some commonalities in the numbers, but I'm going to speak to each one individually. And really, we're just going to do what I call a knee-jerk here. Over the years, I've had a lot of folks who could only get 2 minutes or 3 minutes in a reading, so I've kind of learned how to speed through. Nancy said we'll be here for 3 hours, but, she's been listening to me read all week. You'd think she'd understand by now. We can knock it out pretty quick. Lucia, you've got a 268, which means you're stubborn and grounded on pretty much every level. 268 means that you are here to learn and understand your own power. The 2, of course, is relationships. So relationships are very important to you. Family, friends, that's the 6. So for you, when God said, what do you want? You said, I want it all. I want the partner, I want the family, I want success, I want it all. There's an awful lot to be said about a 268 that we're not going to cover here. But you face a good bit of challenge in this lifetime because you tend to want it all early. And a lot of this takes growing into. Even though folks may have, quote unquote, an old soul, it takes a while to grow into who you are, especially in these higher numbers. When you get to 6, 7, 8, it takes a while because you've got all of your previous lifetime information, if you follow this theory, inside of you somewhere, but you have to wake up to it. So I find that a lot of 8s go through sort of maybe more than one lifetime, maybe more than one marriage to accomplish what they want to do. You are currently in an 8 year. You heard me tell Walt that an 8 year is where all that you've been working towards starts coming together. Since this is a financial and a self layer for you, that will indicate that is financial and self stuff that's mainly the focus. So a lot of times folks get promotions and raises in an 8 year where they get the recognition for all the work they've been knocking out. Old ones, whoever you are out there, you are what I call an alien puppy. If you have a problem with being an alien, you are welcome to be a foreign exchange student because you took on all 3 major life lessons in your very first time, according to your numbers. The 2, of course, we're back to that's relationships. The 8 is about personal power and success, and the 1 is the lesson of self. So if you buy into the philosophy that 1 is the first lesson we do here, you said, okay, I'll figure out who I am, and I want honey and money too, and I want to do it all really, really well on my own terms. So all 3 major life lessons in your first go. It's like going to college and taking your all 3 of your 3 majors in maybe your first semester, or all of your majors in the first semester. You too are coming to the end of a layer here. I didn't touch on this too much with the transitional numbers, but the transitional numbers are the layers I was talking about. It's not as much who you are, but what you're working with and going through in the moment. And a layer lasts between 8 and 10 years. Now, numerology says flat out 9, and that's not true. at least not in my experience. 8 to 10 years, though, is pretty much balanced. Some people drag their feet. Both Lucia, Old Ones, Colleen, and Walt are all coming to the end of a layer, because after 8 comes 9. And, in the life energy, 9 is the final exams. In the transitional energy, 9 is the end of the layer. And I call it the deadwood phase. It's for clearing and releasing and letting go and finishing and getting rid of the old energy. Whether that's 5 areas come up for review: jobs, cars, friends, relationships, homes. Almost always 3 of those 5 things will go through a change, if not all 5. And the first part is, it seems like things are falling apart. Now, I'll warn all of y'all, you will probably find that next month, March, April, things that used to bother you a little are going to become a royal pain in the hiney. Major transitions are designed for change. They are bridges in our life. They're designed to be uncomfortable. They're the most powerful part of a 10-year stretch. So when you're getting ready to hit a major transition, the universe kind of gives you a heads up. The things that become really uncomfortable, the friends that annoy you past your last nerve, these are things that it's time to let go of. It's not time to hang on with both feet, both hands, and both feet. And that's what most people tend to do. They'll say, I want change, and when things start changing, they grab on. So this is a time to kind of pay attention to what's getting uncomfortable, and then look at, is this something that I really need to just let go of and get moving forward? The more holes you make in your life in the major transition, the first part of the major transition, usually the further you will go into the new layer. Your major transition, for all of y'all that are in 8 years, will come in at the end of summer more likely than not. I need to, kind of tune more closely for each of you. But more likely than not, it's going to be like August, September, October. And I think that's because, even though the books say winter solstice or your birthday, I'm seeing the fall for most people, because I think it's because we went to school in the fall. All of a sudden, you're not a 3rd grader anymore, you're a 4th grader. So in the fall, all of you will hit the end of the layer, and it's time to let it go. If you get a chance this summer, get away for a few days and just daydream. Think about the next 8 to 10 years of your life, what you want it to be like, and then, come back to your life and start getting rid of anything that doesn't fit the new picture. Okay, so that's for Lucia, Old Ones, Walt,
Colleen.
Okay, Colleen. Colleen is a 347. And Colleen, I want you to know you're in good company, because both Nancy and myself are 347s.
Wow.
7s tend to spend way too much time in their head. The 3 and the 4 is interesting. And then I'm going to talk about 7, right? 7 is about reconnecting to spirit. 7 is a lot about trust and intimacy. 7s tend to be the teachers. It's an interesting life path, because the 3 and the 4 have very little to do with relationships, as in emotional relationships. We can be very difficult when it comes to the ooh baby stuff, because we tend to be pretty content in our own programs. We don't tend to be people who really need to be in a relationship. And so we're kind of like push me, pull you. Sometimes when people get too close or depend on us too much or whatever, we tend to back up, trying to get them to back up a little bit. So even though we're doing trust and intimacy, we do it from a position of, I don't care, Am I lying, Colleen?
Nope.
Okay. So, as I said, I just spoke quite a bit on the 8. Yours has been a relationship layer, a lot to do with, and that makes great sense that you're doing the work you're doing right now, social consciousness, moving things in a direction that serves the greater good. And this has been a relationship layer, so I suspect you've been put through the mill with relationships in your life, as well as found ones that are really helping you to step more into who you are. So, now we're on to true magic. Am I doing good?
You're doing good.
Am I whipping through it?
No, take your time. This is amazing.
True Magic. You're another one of those alien puppies, my dear. You've got the 281 going on. I'll say, and on any of these, if you all check my math later and you find I'm wrong, well, forget it. I'm right. Even if it added wrong, I'm right here. True Magic. You, as again, the one would think that's the very beginning of the program here. And I will say this about ones. Ones tend to need each other. So you 281s need to be talking to each other. Ones tend to need ones in their lives because they feel like they definitely have the beam me up Scotty mentality. These people here don't make any damn sense. So I would say that for you, the big key is realizing that the one part is, what does all this mean to me? But the one part is so critical because like I said, I think God went out into the universe, or the universe chose whatever and picked all the best people from everywhere and said, look, we got a mess going on there. These folks have gotten stuck in some bad patterns and ways of looking at things, and we need it changed. So the point of 281s is to see things differently, to do things differently, to bring a new frequency in to make the changes make more sense. So you are in a 7-year, which means that your brain's on overtime. You have been in a high-stress energy for a couple of years now. You are working with self and finances as the overriding program. And I'm going to encourage you with all my heart to feed your brain constantly. When someone's in a 7-year, there's a tendency to worry and worry and worry. And I see it as a hungry brain. It's almost like your guides go in a 7-year and turn your brain up a notch. And so the brain is needing to be fed. So I say even a book in the bathroom. If you're not feeding your brain will find something that troubles you and replay it ad nauseum until you're about ready to hurt someone. So feed your brain. Since it is a financial layer, I would suggest that be the first place you look for the information, whether it be classes, courses, workshops, seminars, or mentoring around your career or money itself. And it being a self layer, anything that helps you to evolve into the best you. Whew. Okay. So we're to Vanessa now. Vanessa, you are a 29112. The 29 indicates that you're going through a lot of advanced testing on relationship issues. In males, please don't be mad at me for this, but in males I call this the cheater pattern. Because males with this energy tend to be so afraid of being alone that they will create backup relationships. They're not always physical cheaters, but they tend to be emotional cheaters. They'll have exes that never go away, very, very dear friends who happen to be female, a relationship on the side. And that comes from an insecurity. The 2-9 creates an insecurity around being afraid of being alone. And it is something that has to be watched out for. It really all it is advanced testing on trust and relationship issues. And one of the biggest things around trust, and this is for all the 7s that are sitting here too, trust is not about not trusting anyone. Trust is not about trusting everyone. Trust is about discernment. Taking the time to really know as best you can who someone is and what their program is before you risk anything you're not willing to give away. Okay. The 11 is the high master soul, or the glutton for punishment, master student teacher. It's the first of the master lifetimes. It means that when God said, well, why are you going back? You said, I feel so sorry for these suckers. I want to learn how to help them. So that's what you're here. You're here learning to teach. I was mentioning to Steph earlier that she's a master student teacher. I was mentioning to her that y'all have a bad tendency to be drawn to your students because the soul attraction feels the same. So I want to encourage you that if you say to yourself, I can help him or her, I can teach him or her, I can show him or her, it is more likely this is a student than a partner potential, and act accordingly. And of course, the 2 means that even though you're getting a whole lot of advanced testing and you're kissing frogs all over the place, you still keep wanting someone in your life. Or you find yourself constantly drawn to interaction with someone else. I would encourage you that you might need to make you more important. And I'm real willing to be wrong, so anytime I'm lying, y'all just raise your hands. You're in a 2-year. You've just entered into a whole new layer of your life. In the 1 year, it's where we plant the seeds. The 9 and the 1 year are the major transition. The 9 years for clearing out and letting go and releasing. The 1 year is for bringing in new energy, new people, new ideas, new opportunities. If you haven't done that, get on the ball and go do that. Open up to new energy. The 2 indicates that this is going to be a partnering layer for you, a relationship layer for you, and that your life can open up and allow you to make more connections emotionally. It may also indicate that you're feeling really wanting to be all touchy-feely with someone, whether it's a new relationship or your current relationship. And I'm hoping if it's your current relationship, your partner's feeling the same thing. Okay. Ray Rowe. Ray Rowe is another one of us 7s, but he's a different kind of 7, and I'm so glad you put your birth date up there, whoever put it up there. As you've seen, I call out the first part of the numbers and the second part. Ray is also a 7, so he spends too much time in his head. He's a thinker. The 5 indicates a very playful, very creative side to him or her, him I assume. And the 2 indicates that Ray is someone who kind of needs to be in a relationship. When there's a 2 in a life energy number, it usually goes right to relationships. So Ray would be a frog kisser that keeps going and kissing the frogs. Whereas Colleen and Nancy and I we don't really care. Ray cares. Just come out of a major transition. Also, there's a current partnering energy, but I suspect that this is a financial layer for you. So there is an energy around you that would help you bring in all that emotional lovey-dovey stuff, but you're still going to have to make sure that you're the priority in the program. I'm double-checking the numbers to make sure I'm not lying. Nope, it's a financial layer for you, kiddo. Okay. And the good news in a 2 years, most of the crap's behind you. T-Madge, especially if you let it be behind you. T-Madge, that's another power person, but with the creative energy. You got a challenge sitting right in your life energy pattern. You have a very creative, explorational side, lots of fun, lots of play, but the 8 is grounded and wants security and wants success and wants to make things happen. So the real challenge is balancing those 2. It's making certain that you don't get so distracted by the circus that you don't make happen what you can make happen. There's a lot of success over here. I like to think of this number as the guy who created the pet rock. You know, he came up with this great idea, and then he made $1 million off of a rock in a box. So let the creative energy feed the success energy. It's also a great, the 3 and the 5, I always equate with the yellows and the oranges, like I said, and that's people colors. So it's very possible to use this energy with your interactions with people to be what brings you your successes. 2, 1, 3, that's playtime. I love it when a 3 energy comes up if the person's willing to play. The 3 carries a lot of more creative energy. It's a social energy. It is a relationship layer. So people tend to be prominent in this kind of energy. There is a bunch of energy around self. As I say, this is a time to enjoy. It's a networking energy. What comes next is the 4, which is new work, new money paths, new money opportunities as potential. So right now is the time to explore opportunities and options in preparation for that. There you go.
Oh, but I got 3 more.
Oh.
We did that in a half an hour. Well, not even that.
You and Walt
like
talk, and then I'll look at these real quick.
Okay, that's Dolly. And this is Harley.
Okay.
And then there's this one, Onaka.
Okay.
Okay, so Walt, you there, hon?
Yep, I was just muted.
Okay. Any comments?
Oh, I think she's on a roll. Keep her talking.
I know, I sit around and talk with her all day long, but when she gets into doing her thing, it's a totally different person. Not that I don't like the first one, but the second one is just
She's
so
sitting on the pilot's chair. Why stop a good thing?
That's exactly what I think. Right now she's figuring the numbers. There was 3 more.
And I'm taking a breath.
And she's taking a breath. Steph, did we have your numbers? Do you want your numbers? She's gone in to talk to somebody. The people that I am familiar with, it sounded to me as if she was really, really dead on. And I've listened to her hundreds of calls, because we used to have a place where there was only one room and she'd be doing her thing and I'd be doing mine.
Can you repeat if you remember, because I didn't quite catch all of it. For those of us sitting on the 8th layer, which is the end of something and the beginning of something else, what was it that she says that April we're going to get our asses kicked or something like that?
What was it about April? March and April, right?
What I was saying, I call that energy the phase of discontent. It's sort of a heads up from the universe on the areas that need to go through changes during the major transition. It's kind of like when there are people in your life that you kind of get along with them. It's okay, but they have some behaviors that just annoy you or bother you a little bit. In the phase of discontent, and I said Heine, but it's where what bothered you a little becomes a royal pain in the ass. It's where you kind of look at them and say, I'm not really sure that I want to continue with you in my life, And that's where the universe is sort of showing you that what it is time to let go. It's like if you have a that's usually where the relationships start to fall apart, when people have been together for a while. It's where if you have a chair that has a bad wheel, that finally you fall to the floor for the last time and the chair goes out the door in the major transition. I mean, you may hang on to it till September, but it's not going to last much past that. So that's what's coming up for y'all that I was saying. We're pretty close to the incoming phase of discontent that precludes a major transition. And there's several people, I think 3 or 4 of y'all, that are hitting major transitions come fall.
Yay.
One thing that I would comment around major transitions is that it's possible, a lot of things in life are not what is, but how you view it. So, most of the time, major transition, since money and honey are the main thing, I'm going to go to the honey thing for a moment. In a major transition, it's impossible to have a relationship, but you don't view a relationship as a beginning when you're in an ending. You view it as an ending of being alone. It has so much to do with perspective. When you're in an endings energy, view things as what is this completing? What is this ending for me? And when you're in the new beginnings energy, then you deal with that too, in that mode. This is a new beginning. Do I really want to start this in my life? Well, I think I have these other folks ready, so I'll give it a run and see what I came up with.
Go for it.
I believe this person's name is Onak, and this would be another 257. So we're dealing.
No, that's accent is on the O. It's Anaka.
Anaka. Okay.
That was his life when he was a Native American.
Well, Anaka is here as a teacher, and spends, again, I say it this way because I'm a little snide, but too much time in the head. Sevens tend to intellectualize everything. We think about it and think about it and think about it. There's also a tendency with sevens to think about things so much that you don't really say it out loud, and then you don't understand why everybody else didn't understand. The 5 is the creative explorer, interested in everything, hate to be bored energy. And the 2 is the relationship. So for me, that's the built-in catch-22. The life lesson has to do with trust and intimacy. And it said this is someone that, would be putting themselves into relationships or wanting to be in relationships and still running into all this trust and intimacy stuff. Now, one of the things with relationships and relationship layers is it's not always just about relationships with other people. A lot of times it has to do with your relationship to spirit or your relationship to self. In a 1, 2, 3 year, again, 1, 2, 3 I love because I always think ready, set, go. 1, 2, 3 is an opportunity to really stretch out and explore and expand. It's a great time, again, for networking, connecting with as many people as possible. It's a good attracting energy for relationships, and it's also a great time to make time for yourself. Harley's a 9. Oh, Harley. Harley, both of my parents are 9s, so I feel for you. 9s are what I call final examiners. As I said, I had this image of God saying, what do you want to learn? And you say, well, I already figured out all this stuff, so test me. Hit me with your best shot, Final examiners have very solid ideas of right, wrong, fair, and unfair, and y'all tend to think yours is the right and wrong over everybody else's. Final examiners, us regular people, usually not real good matches for you because our life lessons become a part of your test. Your test is the test of balance. You're learning to balance a very creative, very playful side with a side that wants a great deal of security and wants to follow the rules. I think of it as the teenager and the old man with the stick up his butt. So it's a matter of trying to find a way to balance those two sides of yourself and to find peace with that. Just came through a major transition, starting a new layer in your life. It is a relationship layer, I believe. I got distracted by Walt's question at that point, so let me double check myself. I'll do a progression on the energy and let you know what I found. Yep, relationship layer. So this layer is going to have a lot more to do with people. I tend to kid a lot when people come out of a financial layer and say, I guess you're starting to think everybody else is gay or married. Unless, of course, you're gay or married. So the good news is that had you been having challenges looking into relationships or connecting with people in the past, now your guides, your angels, your soul path is going to support that, and better choices will come in under this energy. If you're not so burnt out, you're not open to it anymore. So now we got Dolly sitting here. Another one of those high master souls, master student teacher, getting tested. Tests all about relationships, trust, and intimacy. And here helping to serve the greater good and getting ready to hit a major transition. So, you join the other crew here with that. Got a whole lot of people getting ready to hit major transitions. That's like a room full of women with PMS. But I wish you all luck and love with all of it. And I said I would encourage you to figure out what needs to go. And I say you'll be getting a heads up in the next couple of months for sure.
You mean figure out before we set foot on Titanic?
Now, just because it's a major trans doesn't mean the world's going to crash and burn. It just means for change. It's a great time to clean your closets small.
Well, yeah, that description of that number 8, the time of the change at the end of a phase or end of a period and the beginning of something else, reminds me from astrology many years ago back in New York when somebody did not my birth chart, but the transit chart as to, how does the chart look for your birthday on that particular year. he said that you have the sun on the 8th house. And I said, what does that mean? Well, it means one of two things, either death or major changes in your life. And yeah, that particular year was the worst year of my life because I went through such horrible changes. I thought I wasn't going to die, but I didn't. So I lived to tell about it. He says, but that's what happens when you have the sun on the 8th house. It's a time of major changes. And I said, how often does this happen? He says, well, every 12 years. It takes 12 years for the sun to go through all the houses, almost 12 houses. So, but that's what your description reminded me of.
Well, we're glad you stuck around, kiddo. You've added quite a bit to our lives.
Well, you're having fun now, aren't you? I mean, don't you think that awfulness is behind you?
Yeah, because now you can look back and say, oh my God, that bothered me, and that when you look at that and you say, oh, I can't believe that used to bother me. That's you realize how much you've grown and learned. So, so who's next?
No, she went through the entire list.
Oh, that's it.
I did it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, now why don't we turn it around here and you do get her on the human design.
Oh, sure.
You game?
I'm game.
Sure. Okay, go.
Sure.
Go.
Go ahead, read my beads, Walt.
Hold on. Let me go to the place.
Whip out your crystal ball.
Do you have your teacup ready?
Yeah, okay. Let's see. Day of birth?
7/5/57.
Okay, so you're giving me the month first?
Oh, day of birth 5.
So July 5th, 1957. 57. Do you know the time of birth?
13/13.
Okay. 13/13. Country, USA, what state?
Right down the street from Edgar Casey in Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Okay.
Any wonder I ended up in this line of work?
Was it
So, town is Virginia Beach. Virginia Beach. Okay. Oh, wow. She has the same profile as Raoul Ruhu. She's a projector. Yay.
No surprise there.
Oh my God, she's only got 2 defined centers. All the other centers are all open. And she's a single definition. Well, the projector, as I've explained before, that's the strategy of how we function. We can't go out there. We can't be go-getters and overachievers. We need to wait for the invitation of the other to be able to engage the other in a decision-making process. Human design is all about making decisions that are correct for you, and each type has a strategy and an inner authority of how it works. Now, because in Lee's body graph there are no defined motors, she does not have an inner authority. That means that for Lee, whenever she needs to make a big decision, let's say, should I decide on this car? Should I buy this car, or should I buy that other car, or should I buy this house, or should I move here, or should I move there? Anything that's a big decision for her, from the moment, whatever the date is, it doesn't matter the date, from the moment that she knows that she needs to make the decision, she has to wait 28 days, one complete cycle of the moon, because only then will she have the clarity to know what is the right decision. She should not make split-second decisions, no, because that is not going to work for her.
Go ahead, say it
So
again.
I have a Malibu that confirms that.
That being a car. For those that don't know that, I know the story. Otherwise, I think it was some kind of an animal.
My friends think aliens took over my body that day.
Oh, so that was a major bad decision on your part.
That was a major knee-jerk decision that I have come to regret.
Okay. Well, starting from the bottom, on the human design body graph has 9 centers. I mean, that's what Rauru explains. That he says when you think about all the major religions, they were created by 7 centered beings which are now extinct, because he says that ever since Herschel, the astronomer, discovered the presence of the planet Uranus, and I think it was in 1780 something or 90 something, humanity experienced a leap in consciousness and evolution, and from that moment on, babies started being born with 9 centers as opposed to 7. So they don't call the centers chakras because they don't necessarily have to do with the chakras themselves. So like the bottom, starting from the bottom going up, the roots center in your case is open, it's undefined. And what happens in human design is that the main goal of human design is to teach you to move away from the mind, because the mind doesn't know you. The mind is a binary. Case in point, every time you need to decide on something, what does the mind do? Oh, it shows you the pros and the cons. Well, if you're so smart and you know what's the right decision for me, why don't you just tell me, as opposed to showing me the 2 sides of the coin? That's why the mind was never meant to be a decision-making tool. It was meant to be what it is, a very fancy, very sophisticated calculator, because it's what you use. That's what you use. You needed to use your mind to do the numerology calculations. We need to use the mind to figure out how many boxes we need to pack up all these shoes that I have here, and that's perfect. It's exactly what it was meant to do, but it can't make decisions for you. You have a design that does that, tells you how the correct decision-making process is for you. So when a center is open, the mind doesn't understand that, and it wants to come in and compensate for it. So it makes you act in a way that's not natural for you, and that's why they refer to, in human design terms, they refer to the not self mind, meaning that you are behaving not as yourself. So when a root center is open, that person is feeling the pressure from the people around him or her that have the defined root center. So that person is always feeling under pressure to do. I mean, these are the super busy bees that are constantly running around, and no sooner are they done finishing something, they're looking for the next thing to take care of, because they feel that pressure to do. Now, once you realize that this is something in your design, you don't have to do anything, because all you just aware, okay, yeah, I'm feeling the pressure to do something, but I don't have to. And you don't have to be ruled by that constant pressure to do. The square above that is the sacral center, which is, in your case, is undefined. When the sacral center is undefined, like Rauru says, these are the ideal slaves. Because what happens is an undefined open center is like a radar station that's picking up signals from all over the place. So each center picks up the frequencies that are particular to it. So if you are sitting in the presence of a generator, your sacral is getting all that definition, all that energy, but you're getting 200% of it. So you feel like you could do a 10-hour shift. But it's a feeling, it's not your energy. So if you do a 10-hour shift, you'll come home and crash and burn, because you were just working like a machine when it wasn't even your energy. So that's why Rauru refers to the undefined sacral as, the design of the perfect slave, because these people will work themselves until they'll work themselves to the bone. Another thing, when you don't know how you function, an undefined sacral center, the person, depending on their personality, of course, and how they behave, if the not self mind comes in and tries to compensate, these are the kind of people that get hooked on food, excessive food, excessive eating, or they get hooked on sex. They can't get enough sex because the not-self mind is constantly looking for that definition that it doesn't have. So that's why if that were defined, that would make you a generator, which is a totally different type. To the left of that, we have the splenic center. The splenic center is the prehistoric center of awareness. It is the center that tells the gazelle, oh, there's a lion hiding in the underbrush, run. So when the splenic center is defined, it constantly gives you that sense of well-being. It's looking out for your health. It's looking out for your safety. So when the splenic center is defined, your intuition is dead on all the time. You can rely on your intuition. In my case, in Nancy's case, our splenic centers are defined, so that's our inner authority. When we need to make a decision, it tells you in that present moment, this is what it is for you. Yes or no, don't go there, or don't do this, or go ahead, that's safe. In your case, it's open. It's undefined. So again, when the person does not understand how they're supposed to function, this is the kind of person that can get hooked on things that are not good for them. They get things, relationships, objects, places, because they're constantly being drawn to desire to feel good, to feel safe, to feel secure. So when you are physically in the presence of someone who has a defined spleen, you're getting that defined energy, and being in the presence of this person feels really good. This is what leads to some toxic relationships when you have men and women where one of them defined, the other one is undefined. They'll put up with a bad relationship because they can't, the partner that's undefined does not want to be without that defined energy, because being with this person, even though he or she beats me every day, I still feel secure. As sick as that sounds. Again, the mind getting into the business, and the mind doesn't understand how the body functions. The center to the right of the sacral is the solar plexus. In your case, the solar plexus is open. It's undefined, meaning that wherever you go, you are constantly feeling people's emotions. It's like one thing, I don't want to move away from the splenic center. When the splenic center is opened and undefined, like in your case, and you understand how you're supposed to function, it's a great instrument, because now you get to feel how safe a person is in reference to you. Is this person sketchy, doubtful, what the heck is he? So it's like a sensing center. It lets you sense, can I trust this person? So it's not a negative. Each human design is absolutely perfect. There's nothing bad about it. Only the mind gets into the game and says, oh, I don't like this feature in myself. I wish it would be different. No, you don't. It's perfect just the way it is. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing to fix. It's a perfect instrument. It's a perfect machine. You just never got the user manual for it. That's why you don't know how to operate it. Do not take this cold drug if you're going to be operating heavy machinery. Well, the kids in school are not being taught how to function correctly, and that's the purpose of human design. The solar plexus center, it's open, it's undefined, and that means that wherever you go, you constantly get to feel 200% of the emotional energy around you. So when this person doesn't understand this about themselves, this is the kind of person that's constantly trying to avoid confrontation and truth, because they get overwhelmed feeling this onslaught of emotional energy. So this is the kind of person that it goes to a restaurant, you order an expensive meal, the meal has been terribly cooked. Well, the person with an open solar plexus will pay the bill and go home. They'll just get up and leave. But the person with a defined solar plexus, they'll send the plate back to the kitchen to be made correctly. That's the contrast between the two. So in my case, I had to learn, this is the reason why I wanted to get away from people, because you get overwhelmed with all their emotion. But once I realized, it's not me. I'm just sensing it. It has nothing to do with me. Then I was able to have the correct attitude and just not be bothered by it anymore. Above and to the left of that is the heart center. The heart center is open, it's undefined. The positive way to use this when it's open and undefined is that you never have to prove yourself to anyone. You can if you want, it's a personal choice, but you don't need to prove yourself to anybody, not even to yourself. Because the heart center is a motor, and what it does, it provides, when it's defined, it provides the ego energy to follow through on the word. For example, when a person has a defined heart center, this is the kind of person that says, yeah, I'll promise this will be done tomorrow at 6, and you come back tomorrow at 6, and it's right there, it's finished. They have the defined ego energy to follow through on their word. But when the heart center is open, it's undefined, you don't have that. You can promise the world to somebody, but the energy to get you there isn't there. So people with open heart centers, when they start giving their word or promising stuff, their digestion takes a hit. They constantly have digestion problems because you just did something that you can't follow through. So this is my case. So when I learned this, I used a very easy tactic. When people ask me about doing stuff, or I'll always say, well, I'll do my best, or let me see. I'll focus on that, but I never promise when it'll be done or how it'll be done. I'm just saying, okay, I'll work on it. And ever since I did that, I have no problem finishing stuff that has to be taken care of and has to be finished. And my digestion doesn't have to suffer for it. Above and to the left of that is the G center. The G center has to do with our movement through space and our direction in life. Yours is open and undefined. Again, when the mind doesn't understand how this is supposed to work, this is the kind of person that goes crazy looking for their direction in life, when in reality they don't have to go chasing their direction in life. Because people with an open G center, the only thing they have to mind is their place, where they are, where they live, where they're going to go meet somebody, because place for them is everything. If you're in the wrong place, you're surrounded by the wrong people. It's like if you want to have a business meeting with someone, you're going to discuss, I don't know, some marketing strategy or something, and you are going to meet this person at a cafe. If that place is wrong, the meeting's going to bomb, so you're better off rescheduling and maybe meet in a restaurant, and everything will be A-okay. So these people have to be mindful of where they are and how it feels where they are. That's why you have these two great sensors open in your design, the solar plexus and the spleen, because you're constantly feeling what's the emotional energy in the place, and if it's safe or not. So you're like, Star Trek, like you're got Star Trek tricorders on all the time. People with an open G center, they have a very special dynamic in the sense, when I said they don't have to worry about their direction in life or their trajectory in life, because let's say an undefined G person wants to find a new apartment. All that the person has to do is talk to their friends, tell them, yeah, I'm in the market for a new apartment, I need to move. Go to one or two real estate places, let them know, yeah, I'm in the market for a new apartment because I want to move, and just forget about it. And 2 or 3 days later, the phone's going to start to ring, or people are going to come under your door, and they'll just bring you the information. It's fabulous. They don't have to move a finger. That's the way it works for the undefined G center. And I can attest to that, because every time I physically come across a person that has an undefined G center, they treat me like I'm their butler. Oh, I need this, and I need this, and I did that, and I said, oh, let me guess, you have an undefined G center. Above that is the throat center, which in human design is considered the center of manifestation. Whenever one of the motors in the body graph is connected to the throat, the person becomes a manifester, meaning that they can go out and they can engage others without any kind of strategy. Whereas as projectors, we have a strategy and we have to abide by it, otherwise things don't work. We have to wait for the invitation from the other. So what does that mean? Well, like Randy Richmond says, you go to a group of friends to see a new movie that came out that everybody's excited to see. Okay. And they come out of the movie theater and everybody's talking about it. Nobody's talking to you, so shut up. Then you decide to go to a coffee shop to have something to eat after the movie. Everybody's talking about the movie. Nobody's asking you anything, so just shut up. And then at some point, while you're having coffee and pastry, somebody says, "So, Lee, what did you think about the movie?" That's it. That's your moment to shine. That's when the spotlight is on you. They will be hanging on your every word. But if you try to cut in and say, I think that movie, maybe one or two people might just register 10% of what you just said because they're not listening. They didn't invite you into the process because they're the ones that are giving you the energy to come in to the process. So that's why we projectors wait for the invitation. Now somebody asked Linda Stone, she's the one who wrote the book Living Your Design. Okay, so if this is, how can we live like this, just sitting around or standing around waiting for the invitation? And she says, oh no, you don't have to do that. Focus on what you love. Make it your business to work and focus on what you love. And what happens is when a projector is doing what they love, they shine so much that they get seen. And once they get seen, they start getting calls from everywhere. In fact, that's why Raoul Hu, in one of his lectures for projectors specifically, spoke about the power of the word no. Just because somebody comes to you, knocks on your door, or calls you on the phone with an invitation, that doesn't mean you have to say yes. In fact, it drives people crazy when they invite a projector and they say no or maybe. Because they're waiting for that. They're waiting for the projector to plug into their system, and give them the answer that they're looking for. For example, Linda gives a good example of Randy Richmond. He's a psychologist who lives and works out of New Mexico. And his thing was he always loved Egyptology, all things having to do with the dynasties and the monuments and all that stuff. And he would go down to the library and spend a lot of time reading and going through the different books. And one time, somebody had organized a trip to Egypt, to the Valley of the Kings. And the librarian mentioned him and said, he would be a great addition to take on your trip because this man literally can quote, anything from these books. And he did. He got invited and they paid for the trip. So he ended up going to Egypt because he focused on doing something that he totally loved and that was his passion. So he got seen and he got invited. Okay, above the throat center is the ajna center, which has to do with how you process your thinking, how you conceptualize, how you formulate your ideas. And the ajna center is defined. When the ajna center is defined, the bandwidth that this person uses for their thought process is very narrow, meaning that when they know something, they really, really know it, and they will swear to death by it because they tend to be certain. They're very certain of what they know. But the only thing that these people should be aware of is that just because you're certain doesn't mean you're right. So it pays to check your facts and, double check your stuff because that's one of the things about the defined ajna. And I have met people that have this design. If they're certain that the earth is flat, you're not going to change their minds because they're certain, the earth is flat. Wherever I look, I don't see any curvature. It's flat. So I'm not saying it's you. I'm speaking to, the design and how it might manifest. The last center at the top is a triangle pointing up, and that's the head center. We live in a, okay. Keep going. Okay, Nancy's, okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, okay. You want me to keep going? Okay, I'm at the last center anyway. Like Raoul Hu says, we live in a pressure sandwich because the bottom center is the pressure to do, the top center is the pressure to think, and the head center is open. So the same way that with the open solar plexus, you're picking up everybody's emotional energy, with the open head center, you pick up your thinking from the collective. So your head is full of questions most of the time. And we spend a lot of time answering those questions, because every time we answer the question, we alleviate that pressure. And the joke is that we don't have to. We don't have to answer all those questions just because they're just passing through our head. The thing to do is just, scan the mental field and, okay, that question seems interesting. Let's go answer that one. You don't have to yield just because you're feeling the pressure to answer the question. It's just the pressure to answer the question. That's all it is. The other thing I have to send you to your email is a description of your profile. You have a 5 on your personality side, which is the conscious, and a 1 on the unconscious. And each number is made up of 6 factors. So when these 12 elements come together, they define how this vehicle, that is your body, not you, not the soul, but the vehicle, how it's going to navigate the reality. So it's a very interesting profile, because 5 is, from what I remember, 5 is the seductor. You're an excellent teacher and relayer of information, because you seduce people with it. So I'll send you a link to your email so that you can hear how the profile functions. So that's how this vehicle, that's a projector that needs to wait for the invitation. How is he going to navigate the reality? And that's where the profile comes in. Also, what a projector seeks is each of the types, there's something that they seek, and the projector seeks success. They want to be successful every time, they get invited to do something. They want the success, because when a projector is not following their design, their theme, their not self theme, is always bitterness. They're bitter about mostly everything, and I can totally identify with that, because I was the majority of my youth. I didn't know anything about human design. I didn't know how I would function correctly. So I was constantly bitter. I didn't know that I had to wait for an invitation. Also, the single definition in the design and the body graph, what happens is when a person has a split definition, it means that they need to be in the presence of others. Because as they are in the presence of others and they're getting all this definition, all these defined center energy from others, the circuits between your centers get bridged. And as they get bridged, you have access to more of what you are. But in the case of the single definition people, they don't have that split. There's nothing that they need to bridge. So it's kind of like a self-completed circuit. So when they learn stuff and they pick up stuff, they don't really need to rely on too much human interaction to get it. To get what they need to learn, to get what they need to do. It's almost like a self-sufficient mechanism. So that's what I can tell you about, the single definition. But there is circuits inside, and they all have a significance. There's 64 gates, because it follows the 64 codons of the DNA. But I sold my human design books, so I'm not going to bore the audience going into those details.
Well, maybe not tonight, because we have run over a little bit.
We went over.
Yeah. I love hearing about it, because the more I hear about it, the more I understand it and its implications. But, it's like everything has its own way of looking at reality. And Lee, I so appreciate you coming on the show. I hope you come back.
Well, I would enjoy that. And there was just a little thing up about the alien puppies. I wanted to just tell y'all, you're not alone. And I do find that as a common reaction from the alien folks on the planet. They're just so grateful somebody sees them and knows that they are who they are and that they're not crazy. So it's true, and there is no beam me up right now, but you'll probably find it before you get out of here. And I'm really grateful. Thank you for that, Walt, and I'm going to ask you a few questions a little later offline or tomorrow, because I was trailing along and then I got distracted. So
Was he lying?
Weren't lying, but like yourself, I mean, a lot of these things I have found a balance for. Nancy and I were chuckling because we went to a restaurant and she had food that the bird wouldn't even eat, and she didn't.
I ordered a fish and chips. A seagull came over my shoulder and stole the French fry. I wouldn't touch the fish.
And on the way home, I said, you know, I really would have sent that back. And she said, no, the waitress was so nice, and it was her first night, and I didn't want to do that. And I said, well, okay. So, yeah, a lot of the things you indicated, I have recognized at different phases and have found ways to rebalance them. But it was very, very interesting, and I look forward to. I felt a little selfish. When I listen to other people's readings, after a while, I get kind of bored, and I was hoping our listeners were taking the wisdoms you were sharing. But I thank you, and I thank all of y'all. And my website is energyweaver.com. Throw that out at you. There's a whole lot more there than you might ever care to know about me, but there's also some wonderful pages of different crystals and their metaphysical meanings. There's a great thing you can use on there for runes that is a lot of fun, and I use it pretty regularly, so I don't have to carry mine around. So I thank you, and I thank you, Nancy and Walt, for sharing this time with me.
Well, we're going to have the radio program will be up in a couple of days, and then I will put the links in so you can get to Lee if you forget what they are. Colleen, I thank you so very, 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 very much for all you went the last 10 days. Well, thank you for being there, Colleen. And Walt, again, thank you. I love the audience. Thank you so much for staying with us. I found it fascinating, and I hope that you all got a little bit of insight into yourself, because she did run through these things really fast. And you can always get more if you want to contact her. So cosmicreality.net, you can get me, Walt, there, although you can also get her and with New Paradigm Tools. Thanks so much. Donate it and become a member if you can. And we love you. We'll see you next week. Be safe.
Thank you all. Great show. Great show.
Thanks.
Explanations for the nation, overstanding the impression is the lesson. Teaching, preaching, the unknown, unknown. Teaching, preaching, the unknown, unknown, unknown. Federal gatherings make it ring in my ears, bring tears over the years. People stop believing, achieving, feeding the whole land in the end. The pretenders pretend and warriors feel sorry. Teaching,